Hello, Moon to Moon. I'm coming to you today with a very special episode. I've invited a community member of mine who lives in Minneapolis to come and share about what it's like living with this federal occupation in Minnesota. I want to give you a little bit of background here before we dive in. I know that many listeners are aware of this, but maybe not everybody. So I want to share that I grew up going to Minnesota every summer of my life. Usually we would leave the day school got out and drive up in our Suburban, and then we would drive back and pick up our school supplies right before school started again. And then we would drive up at Christmas every single year and then drive back home again. And so I spent basically a quarter of my childhood in Minnesota, where my maternal grandparents lived. My grandparents were both children of immigrants from Sweden who immigrated to the land of Minnesota, of the Dakotas and the Ojibwe. And both were grew up in small towns, adjacent towns. My grandparents knew each other because of sports games and things that would bring them into contact. And then after the war, they connected and they got married and they had my uncle and then they had my mom. And I was so close to my grandparents. Like just so close with them. My grandpa grew up very poor, like really poor in the Depression. And he was the youngest of three kids and very Jupiterian man. He's a Pisces sun. He was a Pisces sun. And then he had Jupiter in Sagittarius, which of course I didn't know when I was growing up these things, but our birthdays are 3 days apart. He was always singing. He was always inviting me to Rotary meetings. He always wanted me to learn history. He wanted me to be educated. He wanted me to see the world so I could understand people from all different places. He was always a Democrat because he believed it was the party of quote unquote the little guy. And that was very important to him. And he was in many ways like just such a likable, exuberant person, loved people, asked lots of questions. And so people were always helping him out. And not long after the war, he was a salesman, like door to door, selling silver, like silverware. And he was in an elevator, and someone was like, they're giving jobs, they're hiring people at this chemical company. He got his job there and then worked there until his retirement. And he ended up doing really well for himself. And through that generosity of his experience, he was able to pay for so many things that are part of my privilege and my brother's privilege and my three cousins that are more or less our ages that I would also get to see when I would go up to Minnesota. And in the winters, my uncle would turn his backyard into an ice rink and we would skate. We would go up to our family cabin in northern Minnesota and we would skate on the lake. And then in the summers, we would spend the entire time like barefoot outside, feet on moss, in the cold lake, like listening to the loon calls at night, extreme casual, just like basically eating Lay's potato chips, hot dogs, and popsicles around the clock, eating what we fish. And this whole experience is central to who I am. It was like a total different world than the world I grew up in Dallas with my paternal side. And in Dallas culture. And for raising my daughters, I've always been taking them up for many summers of their lives. We've stayed up there for a whole month, just chilling with my cousins. You know, I was a teacher, so I would have the summers off and just take my daughters up there so they could experience the same thing. Many Christmases, you know, my grandparents died with both my pregnancies. So they didn't get to be part of my daughters' lives, but my daughters get to experience all of these incredible things because of how devoted my grandfather was to us and my grandmother. My grandmother had MS. So I grew up with a grandmother with a cane and then a wheelchair, which taught me a lot of things. She was a incredible pianist. So she didn't say much, but when she would sit at the piano, she said everything. And my favorite thing to do was to sit next to her and watch her beautiful hands. So, um, it was, mm, as long as I've been a voting person, I've always voted Democrat. I just always felt the affinity. But as I've become older, I really don't identify as Democrat. I identify with my own law and my own principles. I see voting as very important. And I like to vote for who I would see as like the best opponent in a system that is harmful and trust in like my ability to locate that best opponent in my vote. So, yeah, it's whenever I've had a student in my community, a magician, a client who's from Minnesota, I just feel so much kinship with them. I feel so excited to be able to connect with them at that level because it's just such a favorite part of myself. And my guest today, Janessa Quinn, I met up in Minneapolis when I was up there visiting family, and I did a workshop at one of my favorite metaphysical shops, The Future in Minneapolis. And if you're not anywhere near Minneapolis, I encourage you to just check out The Future online because they have an online store and they sell really, really cool zines and decks and clothes and jewelry and tinctures and all kinds of fun stuff. And it's just like a really, really, really great business. So, yeah, when I started to watch the news about the surge in ice arriving to Minnesota, and then watched as the people of Minnesota responded, so moving. It's been so moving to watch, horrifying, but also beautiful. And just like watching like this, seeing the results of the alchemy of the community trauma of the George Floyd murder, and just like a community coming together to be like, we need to heal, we need to look at this. What can we do to confront ourselves, um, and learn and adapt and learn from indigenous leaders, learn from black and brown leaders, and like humbly listen so that we can be the community that we believe that we are. Because they've always just like, I've always, since a young child, been moved by the like collective focus of Minnesota. Like they were doing recycling so early. Like there, it's just a very community forward. What's the best thing for planet Earth forward? What's the best thing for all of us forward type of community. Of course, it's not everybody. I also know people up there who who don't share some of these views. So I reached out to the people that I know in my community from Living Emergence or from past classes who are living up in Minnesota to check in on them. And I really appreciated some of the things I was hearing from Janessa. And I just felt like what a cool thing to have her come on Moon to Moon and just as one single person, a single person who shares with listeners here a love for astrology, a love for mysticism, someone who signs up for the magician's table, someone in living emergence. You know, some we have these things that we share. What would it be like to bring her on and just have her tell her story of this particular moment that we're living inside? And so that's the perspective of this conversation. we're sharing we're sharing a view of the moment from someone in my community, like many of you, like you if you're listening. Let me read you Janessa's bio. Janessa Quinn is an artist, astrologer, and mom extraordinaire located in Minnesota. As a tender of flame and keeper of hearth, she is here to inspire and encourage others to liberate themselves by remembering their fire within. With the help of her eighth house Libra sun and fiery chart ruler Jupiter in Aries, Janessa illuminates the treasure we can only find in the dark and boldly shares it with the world via her many offerings, including one-on-one consultations, workshops, writing, and her podcast, The Astro Garden. You can find out more about Janessa's work at her website, byjoveastrology.com, or on Instagram at byjoveastro. Janessa's podcast is available on all streaming platforms, including YouTube, and her writing is available both on her website and her Substack. And the links for all of that are in the show notes. Also in the show notes, Janessa has shared some ICE observer training information. If you're interested in learning how to become virtually trained, and please pass that on to anyone who might find that helpful. And then also, she shared a link with lots of different options for donating, as well as a really solid list of local and independent news sources to keep informed about what's actually happening in Minnesota. And that's at standwithminnesota.com. Thank you so much, Janessa, for taking time to come and be with me and be with everyone listening on Moon to Moon. I'm so proud to know you and thankful for everything that you're doing up there. Listeners, enjoy. Welcome to Moon, Janessa Quinn.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you for responding to my request. I think it was within the last week that I reached out by DM
Yeah.
just see if you'd come on and talk about what it's like in Minnesota. Let's begin just sharing how we connected, which for me is in Minnesota at the Future, which is one of my favorite metaphysical shops. I was up there to visit family, and since they sell my workbooks, I connected with them and to put on a little Unshaming the Signs workshop, and you were there.
Yeah. Yeah. I found your work just earlier that year when you had been on the astrology podcast. And then, I started kind of listening to Moon and saw that you were coming and it was like, well, I can't not go to this workshop. So, and I had never been to the future before that, but it was awesome to get connected there because I met Lacey, the owner, and yeah, she's doing all kinds of really cool work here in Minneapolis and Minnesota. So
Yeah, I just got an email from her within the last couple of hours. She's gathering contributions for a fundraiser and I immediately responded with things to give. Um, yeah, I'm so excited to be talking with you. I was curious, have you always lived in Minnesota?
That's a good question. I actually moved up here when I was 11. My mom is originally from here. She's one of like 11 kids, so I have like a ton of family up here still. And my parents actually have moved back, so like I'm just kind of here now. One of my siblings still lives here. But yeah, I grew up before that in South Florida, so it was a
Oh,
very
wow, big change.
yeah, yeah. So it,
Yeah,
that
going back and forth between my Texas family and my Minnesota family was just like, whoa, like very, very different kinds of communities.
totally. Yeah, that was definitely like that's a huge part of my lore, I would say for sure, is like that move and like the differences and just acclimating to a different culture entirely here, but
Yeah.
in good and bad ways, but yeah, mostly good.
And then you were in the magician's table
Mhm.
last year?
Yeah, yeah, just this past magician's table. And before that, I took your moon to moon course, which is
Yes.
integral. Yeah, yeah,
And you're in living emergence.
I am. Yeah.
Wonderful. And will you share a few things about your chart before we get in?
Sure. I'm a Pisces rising, Libra sun, Scorpio moon, stellium there. And then actually my Jupiter is in Aries, and then I have the nodes. I feel like this is really important to this conversation.
Yeah, okay.
I have the North Node at 0 Aries.
Oh,
So
wow.
like it really feels like it right now with everything going on. But
Yeah. Okay. Well, it'll be fun to see how that keeps playing out. I have South Node at 6 Aries.
okay. So on your
We're
ascendant.
like 9 years apart, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, all right. So, where do we begin? Where, if you, do you imagine, and then you're off in the future and you're like, let me tell you about what happened.
Yeah,
Where would you begin the story?
man, that's a good question. I think like, hmm,
Do you think it begins with George Floyd?
yeah, I think it does. Yeah, for me personally, for sure. Like, and I think that there was a lot of stuff that led up to that too, locally. Um, Many other people lost to like police violence prior to that, but George Floyd, I think for sure was like a big tipping point. Um, yeah, and the uprisings there. And I think that so much of the work that our Black people of Minneapolis, our people of color did during that time has like really set us up to lead to where we are right now in terms of like how we're addressing the current like federal occupation in Minnesota. I think things like community care and these underground kind of like networks of care that are operating outside of our usual systems that we're accustomed to really came from the people doing that work on the ground during George Floyd. And like they got a lot more people up to speed, still not everyone, but like, even some of us white people started catching on then, and then have now been able to take a lot of what the work that was done and apply it on a broader scale, I think, with everything going on here. So, um, yeah, and I think, there was a lot of work being done to combat or to, stand up for our neighbors really is kind of like the key to all of this. Starting in December with the surge here in Minneapolis. And things were a little bit quieter then. It was still a little bit easier for people to ignore. And then things really, blew up when Renee Good was murdered. So that kind of, I think probably got the national attention and even people here in Minnesota, um, that hadn't really been paying attention up until that point really were awoken to what was actually kind of going on. And then people really doubled down, I think, on things after that. It was like she was trying to help her neighbors. There's some debate about what she was actually doing, if she was trying to participate or not. But regardless, like it brought more attention to the fact that people that were trying to defend their neighbors from the occupation and from these ICE agents were also being treated very unfairly, and were being treated like, our constitutional rights are just being violated like left and right. So when people heard that, I think, you know, people were more willing to start saying, hey, actually, like there's something going on here that's bigger than ICE agents doing quote unquote their job or something, of like trying to remove immigrants, illegal immigrants from Minnesota. So yeah, I think the way that I've talked about it with my kids has been like there's this group of people from the government that's job is supposed to be checking on how people come to this country and if they're following the rules to do that. But then I have had to explain that like they're not actually following, like the people who are supposed to be enforcing the rules are also not following the rules. And so it's become multi-layered of like, it's not just the fact that I think personally it's inhumane to like have these rules anyway, but then to also um, not even actually using the rules that you've created, and also just breaking all kinds of other rules that we have set as a society for, um, what we're calling borders or who can immigrate here and how. So I feel like I just went on a lot.
Oh, that was great. Thank you. It's
Yeah.
interesting, this idea of rules, because, Texas is this kind of environment of like, leave me alone. I can do what I want. And sometimes there's a lot of fun in that.
Mhm.
Uh, and then I would go to Minnesota growing up. And like, even if I ran outside of like the lines on the side of the street where like pedestrians are supposed to be, if
Yeah.
I ever would like get into like where the cars are supposed to be, people would be like putting their head out the window, just like, you have to follow the rules. And so I've always felt that Minnesota, like as a community, is like very rule following.
Mhm.
Um, because there's like a collective intelligence around like, we have these rules for reasons. They're protecting all of us. Everybody needs to follow the rules. It's so it's kind of a wild thing watching Minnesotans be called like these, terrorists and like radicals, like, because it's actually, I think, inviting their rule following nature in, that is what is part of the community coming together, is like, this is wrong. Like, we have these rules here to protect our neighbors, and there's a massive violation of that on principle. Like, we have to stand against this. Is that how it feels, or am I making this up from the projection of my Texas view of Minnesota?
Yeah, no, I think that's totally correct. I think that's a really accurate reflection of what is happening here, and also why, yeah, it takes a lot for like, the culture here. People are pretty quiet. People want to keep to themselves.
Yeah.
There's concept of like Minnesota nice, which I have found as like someone coming here as an outsider is not what it sounds like. It's like it can actually be like, you know, I, I think it's very defined in like what is happening right now, where like people maybe don't really want to be your friend right away or like don't feel like super open. It's very like Scandinavian, like Germanic culture. But then also if you need something, if like you're like in danger or something like that, like they will come and they will help you. So that it's a little bit passive aggressive. It's a little bit like you kind of keep to your own circles, but then like to see people who participate so strongly and have that culture so deeply ingrained, like being out like in the streets and out, checking on people that they have never met. Is pretty wild. And you know that it has taken a lot for them to be doing that. Like it's not just the usual infringement on people's rights. Like it's beyond what we're used to. So
Yeah. How old are your kids?
I have a 9-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 4-year-old.
Yeah.
We're like in
Like
it.
very different levels of like how to talk about things.
Yeah, yeah, and it's been interesting. They're just so smart, like they're so aware. And like where we live, we are a little bit removed from things. We're still in like the same county as Minneapolis, but like way on the outskirts. So they've kind of been privileged in a way that like they haven't had to witness things firsthand yet. Um, it's not to say that they aren't happening in our community, it's just that they haven't seen it. But still talking to them about it and saying, explaining what this group of people is doing, explaining that they're like not following the rules either, and that we should not listen to them, and that that they're in public places and they're taking people and they're putting people in jails is kind of how I've phrased it. Um, but they very quickly are like, are they coming to schools? Asking that question. And it's like, yes, they're showing up at people's schools. And then, the next question from my 6-year-old is like, well, what are they doing with them? Are they kidnapping them? And it's like, yes. I mean, I'm not going to lie to them. Like I'm trying to be very honest and, and not really having any answers for them other than saying that like, reassuring them that people are really trying to help. There are so many helpers working to fight against this, like mom's a helper, dad's a helper, our neighbors are helpers, and trying to like reassure them in that way. But like, yeah, it's pretty tough stuff to be sharing that like this is what's happening. But there's no way of like sugarcoating what is happening either.
Yeah. Were you at the strike rally?
I wasn't there. I did strike. My kids were home with me, and so they stayed home from school those days. Because there've actually been two now, like back to back, the past two Fridays. Um, but yeah, no, my role has not been part of like the protests at this point. But yeah, major props to them, like just in awe of like how many people turned out and the yeah, I'm really proud.
Me too. My aunt and uncle and cousins have been sending footage of community rallies, what streets are looking like. They're very, very proud and also scared. Yeah. So when I had reached out and asked how you were doing, and you had said that you and your friends were doing things you never had imagined before, I'm curious what some of those kind of daily things are that are have been part of your life lately.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would add it's almost like most people I know, even if they're not even friends, it's just everybody's just doing these things. I mean, a big part of it is like, well, I guess, yeah. One, you're checking a map that tells you where these agents are, or where the most recent incidents have been. So, like, I'm checking that constantly out of fear for my friends, my kids at school, anybody I know that's out and about, trying to see if they're okay, wondering if they're being detained, wondering if, people that I don't know are being harmed. So there's that part of like this, um, like hypervigilance of like what is, having to stay informed of like what's going on. Um, and then the other part is like these underground networks of people like organizing to try to prevent this, to try to soften this, to try to help people that are unable to go to work because of this. So yeah, and it's pretty impressive. It's pretty stealth, like the things that people are doing. And um, you know, it's it's not without risk either. It's like at this point anyone doing that work is being targeted. So it's not just people who are, out documenting or like being like the physical like whistleblowers and observing. It's like people who are delivering groceries are being targeted. And so anything, even like these things that seem very basic, are like now these great acts of heroism or like, which is like it shouldn't even be a thing. Um, and the fact that, yeah, I never expected there to have to, like, me and my friends or people I know to have to be on like these clandestine, like, chat groups of like figuring out how we can do this. It's crazy. It's like and so much of it is like, I have my friends, they don't all live where I live. So then you have to kind of get connected to the people. It's hyper local because that's really the only way that it works. So you have to find your group, and then it's like this nameless face, like everyone is using fake names and fake pictures, and like you don't know who you're talking to. You could be talking to someone but you don't really know. So it's like this faceless, nameless network of people that are just like trying to help these other people that they don't know, but that are in our community. So it's like it's really kind of like mind-boggling in a lot of ways.
Yeah, without like destroying the anonymity or protections, like what are the basics of how you get your name in and how you can start helping in these kind of ways?
Yeah, I think it's just kind of like it's very chaotic, and that's like part of why it works. There you have to kind of know someone or like know someone who knows someone, and like if you don't, you just need to kind of keep asking. Like I think we probably all have a friend that we know might know, or like it's very organic in that way. I was lucky to have people who kind of knew, but they didn't live by me. So it did take a while to kind of get connected with the right people.
Yeah.
And even then, you might find, depending on where you live, that it doesn't exist yet. Like that's something where I'm at, where it's like only just kind of getting going because we're a little bit removed from things. Um, so you might be able to, if there's an area nearby that's a little bit more populated or has something going already, like starting there. But it's all on Signal for now. It's not
Mhm.
for anyone listening. Like we've learned a lot in Minnesota. It's not 100% safe. Like nothing really is. So choose carefully. And like there are vetting processes in place. Um, yeah, you just need to always be acting on there like you might be like it's not safe 100%. And there have been infiltrators. So it's a constantly like evolving system too, where it's just it's always evolving. Like ICE is constantly using new tactics, and then we're adapting, or vice versa. And um, so yeah, it's changing rapidly all the time.
And you're calling it the occupation, like is that the word y'all use to describe this situation?
I think that's an appropriate word. I've heard a lot of people using it. There's like in Minneapolis, there are checkpoints. What I'm seeing in the suburbs more is like, they keep hitting these same areas. Like they're just always there. They're always targeting these like low income areas where brown people might be living. Um, there's no real Yeah, there's no real rhyme or reason to what they're doing either. It's not like they can never present warrants. They're never presenting any kind of, at this point, I don't even know if that's like news to anyone in Minnesota. That's like what's been going on this whole time is like they don't have any list of people even that they're looking for. It's like they see a brown person on the street and they want to take them. So,
Yeah, so I saw somewhere, have you seen this that there are neighborhood allies like basically on every block in certain parts of the city?
yes, yes, I've seen that. And they've had similar setups in some areas of the suburbs and also with schools. So that's the other thing that people are doing that's crazy that I know. It's like you're standing patrol, parents are standing patrol at their kids' school to make sure that children are not being abducted from like school pickup and drop off times at bus stops because they have followed buses home from schools. Um,
Hmm. How how are businesses like I imagine there's a spectrum, but how are businesses responding to parents saying I working less because I need to stand in support of my kids, the all kids.
yeah. I think that has varied greatly. I work for a large company that has said exactly zero on the situation. Um, yeah, I think that that's one of the actually, I'm glad you brought that up because that's like one of the craziest making parts of it is like the gaslighting of society going on. Just at business as usual when this is what's happening. And like when I work with people from all over the country in my day job, and like yeah, people ask me how I'm doing, and I try to like share a little bit without. It's hard to know how much to share with who, and um, when I do divulge something, they just have no idea what I'm even talking about. And so, so they,
My face is like mouth open, but I mean, I believe you,
yeah,
but it's still wild. It's
yeah,
like I'm believing you on one hand and I'm shocked in the other hand. And that's like every day for so many years now. But uh,
yeah.
it must be so wild for you, just like kind of living in these different realities.
Yeah, it's really confusing. It's like, I was telling some friends earlier, or yesterday, yeah, earlier, just some voice notes in a group chat about like my day yesterday. It was like I was making lunches for my kids, and then I get an urgent message from a friend who's driving to work who lives like further out in the country, who saw like 15 ICE agents getting ready to like do something. And she's driving, she can't stop. She doesn't have the right contact information for the group that is where the ICE agents were. So it's like going through the networks and urgently trying to get the message to like the right people and like calling some local businesses there to like make sure they know that this is happening, 2 blocks from them to be ready to lock their doors or whatever they need to do. So it's like relaying this like 911 message basically. And I'm trying to get my kids out the door into school. And then later it's like, yeah, I can't divulge too much information, but there's like rapid response needed, and you're just like in between work meetings, and you're like, okay, I guess I'm gonna put my shoes on now. Like, you know,
Yeah. And then not even being able to share this part of yourself with your colleagues
yeah,
who you work with.
yeah, it's really weird. When I've tried to kind of bring it up, it's just kind of like, oh, I think I will say people have been a little bit more lenient or something. So I appreciate that in some way, but also there's no acknowledgement really of like what's happening. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh my goodness. If I was to go, I've actually entertained the thought of just like going.
Yeah.
Um, and would I sense this was happening? Just like get leaving MSP airport and driving maybe my aunt and uncle's house. They live like right by the U of M's like agriculture campus, kind of
Mm.
by the state fair.
Yeah, I think you would. I mean, I've seen like abandoned vehicles out here where it's like very apparent that somebody was disappeared out of it while they were driving, just pulled over on the side of the highway. So I would imagine there for sure it would be super visible.
Mm.
Yeah, it really, like in answering, going back to your question about like calling it an occupation, like that's what it feels like. It feels like a battlefield. Mostly for me, it's more psychological or like less physical at this point for now. But it's still very much, it is like a war zone. I mean, that's what it feels like is, yeah.
Yeah, so I when I lived in Paris in college, I took a class called um, Memory of Europe, Memory of France, and it was like in a French classroom with French students, and they the we talked a lot about the generational memory of World War II and the divides between neighbors and families, um, between those who were supporting their neighbors that were getting taken by the Nazis and those who collaborated, and they were called the collaborateurs. Um, and that like generations later is still remembered, like who collaborated and who did nothing. Um, I'm curious, obviously, you may not want to, it's not obvious, but you may not want to answer this, but is there a feeling in the field around you of like those are the people that are collaborating in the sense of they're turning away or they're denying that it's happening? Or does it feel like everybody gets it and everybody gets it and everybody feels occupied?
I think it varies on where you live. I think in Minneapolis, it's probably a higher percentage that feel more like everybody gets it. But out here, it's very not that. It's very much like there are people who are happy still about what is happening here. Um, there are, yeah, yeah.
They're happy. Oh,
Yeah,
that must be so wild.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, or think that are still believing the government when they say that they are only going after people who are here illegally, when like, yeah, and are fine with the Second Amendment, First Amendment, all of these amendment rights are being trampled on for people who are citizens. Um, so yeah,
Do,
there's yeah, plenty
do
of
they see you or someone like you as actually um like a domestic terrorist or like somebody who's going to put our country in like danger
I
because you're getting in the way of what these ICE dudes are supposed to be doing? Like, what's their, do you sense their perspective?
yeah, I think that on paper they do think that. I think that most of them probably haven't actually met somebody who or realize that they've met somebody who is doing that. And then I think that if they knew that there are these parents and, people, community members who feel this way and are doing this, that maybe I would like to think that they would change their mind or that they would feel like, oh, like I know that person and they're not a terrorist. Like, but I do think that, yeah, I live in an area that does have plenty of radicalized Trump fans, and there are delusional people. So, yeah, you live in Texas. I'm sure you get it.
Yeah, 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 I do. I do. Um, I don't know why. It just feels somehow different in an occupied city. Um,
Yeah.
Not that we aren't all occupied. Um, but it's very visceral where you are.
Yeah. Yeah, I really held up hope for like the don't tread on me people, and I was very disappointed when they're very happy about us being treaded on. So a lot of them, not everybody, but yeah, it's weird.
It is. Uh, the rage.
Yeah.
Wow. And how about businesses, like the local businesses that are feeding people and like, yeah, I'm curious what all you're seeing there.
Yeah, I think that, well, one shout out to Modern Times Cafe. I don't know if you're familiar, but they're doing some model where everything is like donation based, so they're like not actually making any income and then therefore are also not paying federal taxes or, I'm not sure the entire tax situation, but it's a way of like, you know, saying F you to the tax situation and also feeding people. Um, so I think that's amazing. I have seen myself and others really just like if you're gonna get food out, it's like you're going to a migrant like you're going to get Mexican food, you're going to get Asian food, you're going to get food from somebody who is an immigrant. You're not frequenting these other places. A lot are doing a really great job, especially in Minneapolis, of like not allowing ICE agents to come there and to eat there. And I think that I know you talk a lot about unshaming, but I think using shame in this scenario as like a really awesome tool for like, you don't get to do these horrible things and then come and be fed by the people you're terrorizing or
Yes.
yeah, yeah, or be amongst other people who are afraid of you. Um, so there are like I couldn't even list them all. There most places I would say have taken a stand on that for sure, which is awesome.
Mm. Yeah, some of the videos I've seen of people on the sidewalk just like basically screaming at the ICE agents until they leave. Like I just weep watching these videos. It's just so powerful. I imagine that you've seen some pretty beautiful like you've been witness to great beauty in the midst of all of this? Any like anecdotes be open to sharing?
Yeah. Um, I mean, there's just like stories every day of people like helping people get to like pregnant women getting to their doctor's appointments, or really a local one too has been really successful with raising money for people's rents so that people aren't getting evicted during all of this when they're not able to work. Yeah, there have been really beautiful ways that the community has come together to like do these things that were kind of like impossible or something before. It's like we're not only like we're not only providing like rental assistance, like there are so many, the government has these tools, right, for to help people pay their rent, but like we're doing that and we're not even using all of this money that we're paying into taxes to do it. Like it's kind of amazing that that is possible. And so I think that like these networks, again, like bringing it back to the work that the people of Minneapolis really did coming out of George Floyd, it's like set up these like little communities of care and like I don't it's just caught on to be like this thing that is like greater, the sum is like greater than all of the parts or something, where it's a new like glimmer, I think, of like where things could be going in the future of like how how we can get through this and it can be probably scaled. Um, so yeah, I think that that's what gives me like hope and help like helps me thinking, keeping positive during all of it is that.
Yeah, I'm curious if sometimes with your astrology wired sensibilities, if you have these moments where you're like Jupiter in Cancer, like if you just start to contextualize it and as your witness to it and experiencing what it feels like.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really wild to like to be in it and I think it it's wild to like see everything happening and how textbook delineation it is, like with the Jupiter and Cancer, but also like the Pluto and Aquarius and the, like all of the Aries stuff that's about to happen, all of the Aquarius stuff that's happening right now. It's like, and Uranus, it's like so textbook, but then it's so different to be living it.
Uh-huh.
Like we've talked about the French Revolution how many times with Pluto and Aquarius, but like we're like in it now. And it's hard to be amongst people who like don't know too, where they're like, you know, people, a lot of my friends and myself included sometimes still fall into this like wanting to vote better or like wanting to like go through these same systems, like locally, even the PTA or whatever, where it's like we can try to like help in these ways. And they're, it's hard to remember that they're not working anymore. And like people are quickly like seeing that, I think. But like the first urge is always to like go this route that has already been established. And I feel like that's been one of my roles has been like knowing the astrology and knowing like, history and like where we're at, and that combination. It's like, but that's not going to help us now. And like we can put that down and we can start investing in things that are different or like that we haven't even really thought about yet, but we don't need to spend our time trying to convince the racist PTA that they should care. And
Wow.
so,
Yeah, I think I reached out right after I saw your wonderful post with the like it looks to me like kind of like a Swedish Christmas ornament. I don't know exactly what that was. It's like a straw
yeah,
symbol.
it's a Brigid cross.
Yes.
We made them for in bulk with some of my friends. Yeah.
Um, yeah, it was basically like you tell me the language. It was like where we're going.
Oh yeah, it was just like your favorites are not part of the future. Like
Mm.
celebrities are not part of the future. Like politicians are not part of the future. Um, yeah,
Brands.
brands are not part of the future. Yeah. Like we can stop asking them to like do the things we've been asking them to do now for a long.
Yes. Yes. Something just unhooked there for me. Yeah. We're asking them.
Yeah. Yeah.
As long as you're asking them, we're hooked in, you know?
Totally.
Yeah. It's wild.
Yeah.
It's a great time to have astrology, I think, because it just helps to anchor into something older and stronger than some of the webs that have been holding us, because those are dissipating.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I feel that it helps to put things into perspective with like the history, like looking backwards, and then also just like we're doing new now, knowing that it's like the Aries point that's coming. It's like there's no there's no going back. And yeah.
Yeah, so you've got Neptune right on your north node right now,
Hmm.
gearing up for the conjunction.
Yeah.
Where do you personally feel invited?
I think it's like in this work and like sharing about it. It's like I feel like I'm literally just kind of channeling a lot of the energy of the moment. And I feel like that point of tension, like the nodes there, because my sun is again like opposite Jupiter too, so it's very, very much like Libra Aries and like um for me, I have this draw to like do the Aries thing and like we gotta like fight and like violence is okay. And then there's like this other part of me that's like, well, really like we want a society that's rooted in like love and peace and that is like conducive to life. And like, can we, like, this is where what I'm holding is like, how do we balance that? Like, can we bring this ugly, these people that have done these ugly things and this ugly culture into the future? And like, how do we not, but also keep it focused on the right things? I feel like I'm just the living person of that. Like in some groups, I'm the one that's like, but voting isn't working and like we need to do something more drastic. And then in other groups, I'm like, but we have to start it with love and care and like focusing on that. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, oh my goodness. My ascendant's at 3,
Okay,
Aries. So
so you're
I
really,
also feel like I'm very kind of like rapidly changing in response to the ecosystem. But it does sort of feel like Queen of Swords, like masks are just like falling off that I didn't even know I had on, so that I can get even more clear on what I stand for and what I've had enough of. And but gosh, thank you so much for sharing about your experiences. Yeah, it's feels really good to me to just be able to be with you and sense from someone who's living it, like what it's like. And it's the day to day. Like when we look at history, we wonder, like, what was that like? You know?
Yeah, I think like the thing when you think back to history, I think someone tweeted this or said it somewhere that like you don't really think about like in terms of World War II or like Anne Frank or something when people are like in hiding and going through all of this, like you don't think about the fact that kids are still going to school, you're still going to work. Like what
Mhm.
we're still just like business as usual and like I
Yeah.
that it was. I'm sure that it was. So that was has been really eye-opening that like yeah.
And like what was previously unthinkable is suddenly like just getting like part of your body system is taking it as like a normal daily thing that you're exposed to. It's wild. Um, thank you. Is there anything that you would want to say or share, name, or invite folks into thinking about that you haven't yet?
Yeah, I think just making sure that, for me, I've been thinking a lot about how I can take care of myself too during all of this. So I've been using your all of me inside of me or like the calling back my energy like constantly. So thank you. But in that, I have felt that this is a time for like capacity building. And so it's like yes, we're taking on more and more and more. And like, you have to, you need to, everybody needs to start taking on more and more and more. But it's like, we're at a place where we can do that really rapidly and making sure that you're doing that like energy restoration or something has been, I think, really key. And yeah, I just want people to know that. But, and also just like what you can do, what people can do too
Yes.
if you want to help with like financially, like there are a ton of needs financially. It's mostly like people's rent at the moment and like their legal fees. We've got a ton of people giving food and like that is pretty well taken care of, but it's really the rent and the legal fees that are just going to keep mounting. And then also like talk to your neighbors. Like I know that sounds really boring or like you're not doing anything, but like get to know them, start a signal chat, like start like getting comfortable with the people around you that you're going to be in these like anonymous chats with or something because it's not good. I don't think it will stop here, and you can be ahead of the game if you really start looking now. Like people in Minneapolis will be willing to share information with groups that are interested. There's a great group doing trainings on being an observer called States at the Core. They're based in Chicago and they have virtual trainings. I can like share a link or something
Yeah.
like that. But that's like a really good place to probably start for people too.
Yeah. I'll make sure to have links to different ways people can support and get educated in the show notes. Thank you. Are you doing readings right now? Or are you like, how's the capacity for that?
Yeah, that I didn't open them at the beginning of the year and then everything happened. So I'm not taking readings yet. I'm starting to feel again like I will be ready to soon. But yeah, you can find all that info on my website at byjoveastrology.com. Um, yeah, hoping to get back into it soon.
Thank you so much for coming on, Janessa.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity and to share. I hope that I'm doing justice to everyone here in Minneapolis. But
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Janessa. Listeners, please connect with Janessa, make donations, learn about more about what's actually going on in Minnesota through the links that are provided here. Janessa is an alum of the Magician's Table, which, as many of you know, is coming up here on February 22nd, which is going to be here in 2 seconds. The applications will open. And this year, instead of early bird, what we're doing is it's just apply now between February 22nd and March 4th. We're going to fill it up And the incentive to do it early is so that you can pick your tuition and so that you can pick your cohort. Once you pick your tuition, which will be figured out in the order received, then different tuition tiers will fill up. So please come in and choose the tuition tier that is the most stretchy without collapsing you, keeping in mind that there are others who are also applying and others also picking the tuition tier that is the most stretchy without collapsing you. There's 5 different tiers. 2 of them are considered equity and scholarship pricing. And I can't wait to dive in. I can't wait to get into this with you. The 13th readers and I have been having a really amazing time beginning to do our magic behind the scenes. You can get to know much more about the program by visiting the Magician's Table course page, and then also by listening to the prior episodes that have the different 14th readers. I would do the one called The Lore of the Magician's Table with Tegan, who holds a different role of staff holder, helping me hold all of it behind the scenes. And then the 4 episodes with Shahir, Leanne, Lily, and Arizona can help you get to know the voices of the different 13th readers and also help you really feel into the frequency of the Magician's Table, what it's all about, how it transforms you, how it's an incredible investment. Someone today that I interviewed for an upcoming episode called it a luxury investment, which it is. It's a luxury investment because this is a luxury experience. Let me know if you have any questions about anything. You can reach out to my team at info@BrittenLaRue.com, and you can always DM me at Britten LaRue in Instagram. Thank you so much. If you appreciated this episode, if you really enjoyed it, I hope you'll reach out to me and Janessa and tell us. And please leave a rating or review to help other people find Moon to Moon. It really, 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 really helps. It really, really matters. Thank you so much for doing that. All right. Cheers, and I'll see you at the next one.